Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take the critical research you need, distill it down into absolute core knowledge, and deliver those aha moments that make you instantly well-informed.
We're really cutting through the noise so you can get right to the insight.
Today, we are diving deep into one of the most significant pinch points in modern sustainable agriculture.
Securing high-quality, ethically sourced protein.
Exactly. And you, our listeners, tasked us with a very specific cutting-edge mission.
Right. We're analyzing the viability of Black Soldier Fly Larvae, or BSL meal, as a replacement for the standard soybean protein in organic poultry diets.
Okay, let's unpack this core tension right away, because this isn't just about swapping out an ingredient.
No, not at all.
This is a crucial balancing act. We need to measure how effectively we can pivot towards agricultural sustainability,
Right.
which means drastically reducing our reliance on imported soybean.
While at the same time.
While at the same time maintaining and ideally you'd want to improve the meat quality and the performance of the animals.
Because if you sacrifice quality or growth, the sustainability gains are, well, they're commercially moot.
They don't matter.
That's the crux of the challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, we are attempting to replace the established protein king with a relative newcomer. The findings we've reviewed provide a surprisingly nuanced map of where that sweet spot truly lies.
Okay, so to understand the solution, we first need to really understand the scale of the problem. Let's start with the baseline, the current protein crisis in organic farming. Why has soybean been the undisputed champ for so long?
Soybean is the gold standard, essentially. For decades, it has been the go-to high-quality protein source for poultry.
Why, though? What makes it so special?
It comes down to one major factor.
Yeah.
Its near-perfect profile of essential amino acids. Chickens, particularly broilers, bred for fast growth, they need very specific amounts of these amino acids to build muscle efficiently.
Right.
And soybean provides a fantastic balance, especially of the limiting amino acids like lysine and methionine, which are often, really scarce in other plant-based feeds.
So if you want high performance, healthy birds, consistent growth, soy delivers that reliable nutrient blueprint.
It does.
But why does this become a crisis specifically within organic farming?
It's entirely regulatory, and it creates a massive choke point.
How so?
Well, conventional farming can rely on soy that's been supplemented with synthetic crystalline amino acids to precisely meet the bird's needs.
So if they're low on lysine, they just add pure lysine.
Exactly. But EU organic regulation strictly forbids that practice. Organic producers must use whole protein sources to supply those necessary amino acids.
Which means
They are forced to rely almost entirely on the one high-quality whole protein source that actually delivers.
soybean.
There just aren't many domestic alternatives that tick all the boxes for quality and scalability.
And this reliance is running headlong into massive sustainability concerns. This isn't just a local issue. It's a huge environmental and economic vulnerability.
Absolutely. The issues are, well, you could say they're fourfold. First, you have significant economic volatility.
The price swings.
Huge price swings. Global soybean prices fluctuate wildly based on weather, trade policy, speculation. It creates massive unpredictability for farmers.
And then there's the environmental cost.
The environmental cost of traditional soy production, often harvested in South America, it's catastrophic.
Yeah.
We're talking about deforestation, particularly in the Amazon, and excessive water use in regions already stressed for resources.
Not to mention the carbon footprint of just getting it here.
Precisely. That's the third factor. The tremendous CO2 emissions generated by transporting that soy across oceans and continents.
Right. You have to start questioning the sustainability of an organic broiler when its main food source traveled halfway around the world.
And fourth, and this is most critical for the EU, is the dependence on non-EU imports.
So give us the hard numbers on that. Is this problem getting worse?
It is, and it's growing proportionally to our appetite for organic meat. The demand for organic poultry in the EU is accelerating faster than almost any other protein segment.
What kind of growth are we talking?
Around 11% annually. And our sources confirm that as demand for organic poultry goes up, the import of organic soybean goes up right alongside it. The EU simply cannot cover its current needs domestically.
Which makes the search for a scalable local solution absolutely immediate.
Urgent.
So the sustainability clock is ticking, the pressure is on, and this brings us back to the hero of the hour, Black Soldier Fly Larvae. This insect protein is consistently touted as the most promising alternative to solve this protein deficit.
And for good reason. I mean, the advantages of BSL are compelling. They operate as nature's ultimate bioconverters.
Bioconverters, what does that mean in practice?
It means they take what would otherwise be waste-vast amounts of organic biomass, mostly food industry byproducts that humans can't eat, and they convert it into high-value protein.
And the protein content is good.
It's very competitive with soy. The resulting BSL meal delivers an impressive protein content, usually somewhere between 49% and 59% of the dry matter.
And crucially, their production model sidesteps all that environmental damage we just talked about with field crops.
Entirely. They require remarkably low rearing resources. We're talking minimal space, very little water, low energy inputs,
Yeah.
especially relative to the output volume.
So you could build a facility almost anywhere.
That's the idea. It makes them perfectly suited for large-scale, automated, continuous industrial production. You could even locate them right next to the food processing plants that are generating the biomass in the first place,
Which dramatically shortens the supply chain.
and enhances that whole circular economy model.
So from a legal standpoint, are we ready? Can we actually use them in feed?
Yes, that regulatory hurdle has largely been cleared. BSL is authorized for use in poultry and pig feed across the EU.
Okay.
The only real caveat is that the larvae must be reared in conditions that adhere strictly to organic production rules if the final feed is going to be used for organic poultry.
So it's a solution that is technologically ready and legally permissible.
Which makes the question of performance and meat quality the final frontier.
That sets the stage perfectly for the core of our deep dive, the actual experiment. We need to move past the theory now and look at what happens when broilers start eating fly meal instead of soy.
Absolutely. The study methodology was rigorous, and it was designed specifically to meet those high standards of organic production. They used a pretty substantial cohort, 900 female Aviagen Ranger Savannah broilers.
And the conditions they were raised in.
Everything was compliant with the organic regulation, EU 848/2018. This is important because, unlike conventional systems, these birds had mandated outdoor access starting from day 28.
Okay, and that's key. That outdoor access is part of the organic value proposition, right? Especially when we get to fatty acids later on.
Exactly. The study ran for the bird's entire life cycle, up until slaughter at day 75.
So the feeding protocol, it started around the halfway point, right, to target that crucial growth phase. Lay out the 3 experimental diets for us.
Right. For the first month, all the birds got the same standard starter feed. The real differentiation began in the second period, so from day 31 until slaughter.
And what were the groups?
We had 3 main groups designed to test the level of replacement. First, you have the S100 group.
That's the control.
That's our control, 100% soybean-based protein. Then you have the BSL50 group. This is the partial substitution, where 50% of the soybean protein was replaced by the defatted BSL meal.
And then the third group is the BSL 100, the total commitment.
Correct. The BSL 100 group got a complete 100% substitution of soybean protein with the defatted BSL meal.
And the protein content of that meal was high.
It was. For context, the specific BSL meal they used had a crude protein content of 53.10%. This means the diets were all formulated to be isonitrogenous.
Meaning they all had the same amount of protein, just from different sources?
Exactly. The same target crude protein level, just sourced differently.
So a clear gradient. S100 is our control, BSL50 is the halfway point, and BSL 100 is all in. Before we get to the hard numbers on growth, let's talk about welfare. Did introducing this insect meal cause any observable stress or health issues for the birds?
That's a great question. And the researchers meticulously tracked animal welfare, using what are called animal-based measures, or ABMs, throughout the whole study.
What does that involve?
They're assessing things like plumage cleanliness, gait scores for lameness, and any signs of foot-pad dermatitis or hock burning.
And the findings were overwhelmingly positive, I understand.
They were excellent.
Yeah.
The study concluded there was a consistently high degree of welfare across all 3 groups, a vast majority. In fact, 100% of the animals scored a 0.
The best possible score.
The best possible condition for most indicators, including lameness and breast lesions. Litter quality stayed good. The broilers were healthy.
So that's a critical initial finding. BSL meal substitution, even at 100%, doesn't compromise the physical health or the immediate welfare of the bird.
That's a huge hurdle cleared right there.
It is. But now we get to the critical bottom line data, performance and growth. This is where so many alternative feeds just fail to match the efficiency of soy.
Right.
What did the data show on the final live weight?
The data showed a clear and significant trade-off. There was a negative effect on the final live weight for both of the BSL groups compared to the S100 control.
How significant was that difference at the end of the trial on day 75?
The control group, the S100, they achieved a final live weight of 3,887.53 grams. Both the BSL-50 group
372
at
grams.
3,602.67 G and the BSL-100 group at 3,656.87 G were statistically significantly lower than the control.
But what's really noteworthy there is the tiny difference between the 50% and 100% groups.
That's the key insight. The difference in final weight between the two substitution groups was minimal. It's a plateau.
Which strongly suggests that whatever factor is limiting the growth, be it digestibility or some anti-nutritional component, it hits its maximum effect somewhere before that 50% replacement level.
Exactly. It's not a linear decline, which is fascinating.
Let's pivot to the commercial metrics. Live weight matters, but the weight of the specific cut's carcass, thigh, and especially the breast, that's what drives profitability for the farmer.
And this is where the picture gets even clearer. The total substitution group, BSL 100, saw significant negative results across the board.
All the key metrics.
They significantly worsened all market-related performances. Carcass weight, thigh weight, and breast weight were all lower than the control.
And that drop in breast weight, that's particularly painful financially.
That's the most valuable cut. So if you fully replace soy with BSL, based on this study, you are hurting your commercial yield.
Okay, so total substitution, BSL 100, is commercially unviable. This brings us to the BSL 50 threshold. This is the real test case for that sweet spot.
And here's the major commercial distinction. The BSL 50 group was able to maintain both carcass weight and, crucially, breast weight at a level comparable to the S100 control.
Wow. Okay, that's the first major win for BSL. You can have your soy inputs without significantly sacrificing the most valuable cut of meat.
It is, however,
Yep.
you still see that lower overall live weight we mentioned, and specifically the BSL 50 group had a significantly lower thigh weight compared to the control.
So the compromise happens in the less valuable dark meat, while the high-value white meat is protected.
That's the tentative conclusion for a farmer. But we need to dig into why this reduced growth performance, even at 50%, is happening.
Which brings us to the discussion of anti-nutritional factors.
Right.
What are the primary suspects here?
Primarily, we look at chitin. Chitin is a robust polymer that makes up the exoskeleton of the Black Soldier Fly Larvae. It's mechanically difficult to digest, and its content naturally goes up as you increase BSL in the diet.
So the hypothesis is that the chitin, or maybe something else, is just interfering with the bird's ability to absorb nutrients efficiently.
That's the leading theory. The chitin, or maybe other unidentified factors like residual fat or processing byproducts, are getting in the way.
And is there any physical evidence that supports that interference?
Some studies tracking gut health in broilers fed high levels of BSL have observed negative gut development.
What does that look like?
Specifically, they find shorter intestinal villi and deeper crypts. The villi are responsible for the surface area for absorption.
So if they're shorter, nutrient uptake just plummets.
Exactly. And deep crypts suggest a high rate of cell turnover, which could indicate inflammation or irritation in the gut lining. That poor morphology would absolutely reduce feed efficiency and explain the lower final weights.
But the sources also provided a crucial biological counterargument against blaming chitin entirely.
They did?
If the chicken is equipped to deal with it, why is there an issue?
This is where the science gets complex. Broilers, like many birds, have evolved to eat insects. They constitutively and predominantly express an enzyme called acidic chitinase.
And where is that found?
It's located in their glandular stomach tissues. The presence of this enzyme suggests the birds can break down the chitin structure.
So if they have the tools for the job, why the negative performance?
The variability in results across different studies suggests the blame shouldn't fall on chitin's mere presence. It's likely about bioavailability or just the sheer quantity.
So maybe the processing of the meal doesn't grind it finely enough for the enzyme to work?
That's one possibility. Or the sheer volume of chitin in a 100% replacement diet might just overwhelm the bird's enzyme production capacity. Regardless, the performance dip forces us to acknowledge that high-level BSL substitution comes with a definite challenge to feed efficiency that needs to be engineered around.
We've established the performance trade-off. Now let's move into the truly fascinating part of the data, the fatty acid profile. This is where we realize we aren't just swapping protein molecules.
No.
We are fundamentally altering the biological structure of the resulting meat.
This is the major discovery of the research. Black Soldier Fly Larvae meal, even after it's been defatted like it was in this study, is fundamentally chemically distinct from soybean protein.
And that difference is concentrated in the fat composition.
Entirely.
So what is BSL's biochemical signature when it comes to fat?
The BSL meal is overwhelmingly saturated. To give you the specific figures from this study, 69.31% of the total fatty acids in the BS meal were saturated fatty acids, or SFA.
And in contrast, plant proteins like soy are primarily
unsaturated.
So, if soybean meal is structurally similar to liquid olive oil, the BSL meal is structurally closer to solid butter or lard.
That's a perfect analogy.
Right.
And within that massive SFA content, there is one component that just dominates the landscape: lauric acid, C12.0.
Okay.
This one medium-chain fatty acid accounted for 44.70% of the total fatty acids in the BSL meal.
Almost half.
Almost half. And if you look at the saturated fat content alone, lauric acid made up over 64% of it. That is an astronomical concentration.
It's basically a biological sat fat factory. But why? Why does the fly larva convert unsaturated fats into lauric acid? What's the metabolism doing there?
It's a highly efficient survival and storage mechanism. The larvae, as bioconverters, they consume various unsaturated fatty acids like oleic and linoleic acid from their feed.
And they don't just store them.
They don't. They actively metabolize them. They use specific enzymes to convert these unsaturated plant-based fats into highly stable medium-chain SFAs and predominantly lauric acid.
It's a more robust way to store energy.
Exactly. Lauric acid is their preferred robust storage unit.
So the minute the broiler consumes BSL meal, it is ingesting this hypersaturated lauric acid-dominant storage fat. Let's look at the result: fat remodeling in the broiler meat.
We saw an immediate and direct transfer. As soon as the birds consumed the BSL diet, their meat composition shifted to reflect that larval diet. The total SFA content significantly increased across all treatment groups.
S100, BSL50, and BSL100.
In both the thigh and the breast meat. And that increase was perfectly proportional to the level of BSL inclusion.
Give us the most striking data point to illustrate that.
That has to be C12.0, lauric acid. In the thigh meat, which is darker and fattier, the lauric acid content increased up to 14-fold higher in the BSL 100 group compared to the control.
A 14-fold increase.
It jumped from a tiny trace amount, 0.30% in the control, to a substantial 4.32% in the thigh of a fully substituted group. We also saw big proportional increases in myristic and palmitic acid, the other medium-chain fats.
Okay, so if the saturated fat increased that dramatically, it must have come at the expense of something else. What critical nutrients did the bird lose?
It came directly at the expense of the beneficial unsaturated fats, particularly the polyunsaturated fatty acids, or PUFAs.
Which are generally considered the nutritionally superior fats for us.
Absolutely, especially the omega-3s. Total PUFA, and specifically the N6 and N3 classes, all significantly decreased in proportion to the level of BSL inclusion in the thigh meat. It's the definition of a nutritional downgrade.
Now, we need to dive into the nuance between the two major cuts, the thigh versus the breast, because the tissue type seemed to process these dietary fats differently.
It did, and this is a crucial finding for the eventual formulation of BSL diets. The thigh, being the darker, more active, and fattier cut, showed a really consistent negative trend.
The PUFA just dropped.
PUFA dropped significantly from S100 to BSL50 to BSL100. It was the most sensitive to the dietary change.
But the breast meat showed a different response curve, especially at that 100% level.
That's right. The breast meat is much leaner, composed mostly of structural muscle tissue, so it stores less fat overall. In the breast, the total SFA only increased significantly up to the BSL50 level.
And then it plateaued.
Surprisingly, yes.
Yeah.
There was no further statistically significant increase between BSL50 and BSL100. The tissue had seemingly maxed out its ability to incorporate that additional saturated fat.
And the monounsaturated fats, the MUFAs, in the breast were unique too.
Yes. Unlike the thigh, the breast tissue in the BSL100 group actually showed a significant increase in MUFA content, which was driven mainly by oleic acid.
Which highlights a fundamental biological difference in how the body partitions lipids.
It does. The body prioritizes where it sends and stores different fat molecules. The muscle-rich breast tissue may partition certain fats very differently than the fat depots in the thigh.
Let's focus on the really essential one, alpha-linolenic acid, ALA, the crucial plant-based omega-3. What happened to it?
In the thigh, ALA decreased significantly across all groups. That means any level of BSL replacement immediately compromised this essential fatty acid in the dark meat.
But in the breast meat?
In the breast meat, the picture was much more forgiving. ALA levels were maintained at the BSL50 level, they were comparable to the control, and only dropped significantly when the feed hit that full BSL 100 substitution.
This is a critical insight for that sweet spot definition. If a farmer can maintain the ALA content in the high-value breast meat by staying at 50% BSL inclusion,
They may have found a viable product that minimizes the nutritional cost.
it provides a metabolic explanation for why 50% replacement is so much better at maintaining product quality than 100%.
Precisely.
That brings us to Section 4, where we move beyond percentages to look at the practical health impact of this fat remodeling using specialized nutritional indices.
Right.
So how do scientists quantify the health risk associated with a high SFA, low PUFA profile?
They rely on specific ratios or indices that were developed to assess the cardiovascular health CVH implications of the fat being consumed.
What are the key ones we're looking at here?
The key indices are the index of atherogenicity, IA, the index of thrombogenicity, IT, the PU-FASTA ratio, the hypercholesterolemic ratio, HH, and the health promoting index, HPI.
Okay, let's define the negative indices for the listener. What exactly is the index of atherogenicity, or IA?
Atherogenicity refers to the potential risk of developing plaques in the arteries, which is a precursor to arteriosclerosis. The IA quantifies the ratio of pro-atherogenic saturated fats,
Bad ones.
the bad ones like C12, C14, and C16, relative to the anti-atherogenic unsaturated fats. A higher IA number signals a higher potential risk of promoting plaque buildup and elevated serum cholesterol.
So IA is kind of like a plaque in your artery score.
In a nutshell, yes.
And the index of thrombogenicity, IT?
Thrombogenicity is the measure of the potential risk of forming blood clots, or thrombi. IT specifically measures the relationship between prothrombogenic fats and antithrombogenic fats like EPA and DHA. Again, a higher IT number suggests the fat profile is more likely to promote platelet aggregation and clotting issues.
So as BSL inclusion rose, these indices linked to cardiovascular risk factors, they moved in the wrong direction.
That's the clear signal. Both the IA and the IT significantly rose from the S100 control group through to the BSL 100 group. This confirms that at high inclusion levels, the meat's fat profile shifts towards higher predicted risk factors for human consumers.
And conversely, the indices linked to positive health outcomes plummeted.
Absolutely. The 2-for-FASTA ratio, which is a quick proxy for healthy fat balance, the HH ratio, and the HPI, or health promoting index, all significantly fell with increasing BSL inclusion.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that crucial P-FASTA ratio in the thigh dropped from nearly 1.2 in the control group to below 0.8 in the BSL 100 group. It's a huge shift away from a nutritionally desirable profile.
There was also a difference in the N6N3 ratio, which is another important one to manage.
Right, and that ratio only significantly worsened, meaning it increased, between the BSL 50 and BSL 100 groups in the breast meat.
Suggesting the 50% level kept it in check.
It did, and critically, it showed no difference across any of the groups in the thigh.
This loss of PUFA, it's not just a scientific curiosity, is it? It fundamentally undermines the premium value proposition of organic meat.
It strikes right at the core of the organic promise. I mean, organic broilers are sold at a premium because their legally mandated outdoor access lets them graze on grass and insects.
Which is where they get their omega-3 precursors like ALA.
Exactly. Their bodies then convert that ALA into the long-chain, highly beneficial omega-3s like EPA, DPA, and DHA.
So the organic process itself adds nutritional value, the same way you see advertised with grass-fed beef or pastured eggs.
Precisely. And our sources were explicit on this point. This gain value is lost with high BSL inclusion. The BSL diet, being so high in SFA, seems to interrupt this beneficial process. It essentially neutralizes the nutritional advantage the bird gets from foraging outdoors.
And the most important long-chain omega-3s, DPA and DHA, suffered across the board.
Yes. DPA and DHA, which are the most valuable for cognitive and cardiovascular health, were adversely affected by BSL inclusions at any level in the thigh compared to the control.
So even 50% hurts them.
Even 50%.
Yeah.
And in the breast, DPA and DHA were negatively affected at any level compared to the control as well. You lose those nutritional stars.
Okay, so we have established a clear picture of nutritional degradation at high levels, higher risk indices, loss of omega-3s. But now we have to address the complexity, the lauric acid paradox, because you're saying we can't just categorize all saturated fatty acids as equally detrimental.
That's the critical point for a deep dive like this. Lauric acid, C12.0, is a medium-chain fatty acid, an MCFA. And MCFAs are metabolized very differently than long-chain SFAs like palmitic acid.
How so?
They're absorbed and processed more quickly. They often go directly to the liver for energy rather than being packaged into lipoproteins that contribute to cholesterol and plaque. This offers potential benefits that might mitigate the overall negative impact of the SFA surge.
Let's start with the immediate practical benefit for the broilers themselves. This has to be massive for the farmer.
For the animals, lauric acid acts as a potent and proven antibacterial agent.
So it's like a built-in medicine.
In a way, yes. It's known to prevent necrotic enteritis lesions, a painful and costly disease in poultry, by inhibiting the growth of pathogens like Clostridium perfringens in the gut.
So by including BSL, even though you increase total SFA, you are essentially building a natural defense mechanism into the chicken's diet.
Right. It could reduce the reliance on veterinary interventions.
That's a fascinating trade-off. A quantifiable health boost for the animal, potentially at the cost of some of these human nutritional indices. What about the direct benefits for the human consumer?
The research here is still developing, but it's promising. Because MCFAs are processed differently, some studies, often in animal models, have linked lauric triglycerides to reduced cholesterol biosynthesis.
Interesting.
It's also been associated with reducing blood pressure and heart rate and mitigating oxidative stress. The key takeaway is that its metabolic effect is often considered more neutral or even beneficial compared to the longer-chain SFAs. It challenges that blanket condemnation of high SFA in this specific context.
And finally, there's a practical technological benefit to having this higher SFA profile in the final meat product.
Yes, the shelf life. Unsaturated fats, especially PUFAs, are chemically unstable. They're prone to oxidation, which leads to rancidity and poor flavor.
Right.
Higher concentrations of stable saturated fats, like those we find in the BSL-fed meat, inherently bring a significantly lower risk of meat oxidation.
Which translates directly to better product stability, extended shelf life.
And potentially reduced food waste for the whole supply chain.
So the complexity is clear. We're trading sustainability gains, improved animal gut health, and better shelf stability for a degradation in the PUFA profile and higher calculated cardiovascular risk scores. It's not a simple rejection at all.
Not at all.
We've established the parameters of this trade-off. Now, in our final section, let's distill this for our listener. What is the practical threshold? What is the usable recommendation for the industry coming out of this?
The study provides a very clear answer. The level of substitution is the single most important factor. We saw that total substitution, BSL 100, compromised growth performance, it yielded lower valuable cuts, and it triggered the most detrimental shifts in meat quality.
But the 50% replacement, the BSL 50, that proved to be the viable compromise.
It is the crucial finding for commercial application. The BSL 50 group compromised neither the critical commercial performance. It maintained carcass and breast weight comparable to the control, nor did it induce those most negative, far-reaching shifts in meat quality that we saw in the 100% group.
Let's summarize the 3 core reasons why BSL 50 is that sweet spot.
Okay. First, the nutritional quality benefit. In the high-value breast meat, the BSL 50 level successfully kept the nutritionally important alpha-linolenic acid, ALA, stable.
It prevented that complete wipeout we saw at 100%.
Exactly. It maintains the essential organic value of the product. Second, there's a metabolic ceiling. The 50% level showed fewer overall negative effects on the nutritional indices.
Right, like that index of thrombogenicity.
For instance, the index of thrombogenicity in the breast only increased significantly after BSL 50, which suggests that exceeding this threshold provides no additional sustainability benefit, but only escalates the nutritional risk.
And third,
we get to leverage that lauric acid paradox successfully. The resulting increase in lauric and myristic acids at the 50% level is manageable, and it comes packaged with the potential positive value.
the antibacterial benefit for the broiler, the shelf stability.
All of it. And that helps to balance the perceived negative impact of the SFA increase. The researchers strongly suggest this level is where sustainability gains are maximized while retaining acceptable product quality.
Okay, now we have to address the elephant in the room regarding future development, and that's the massive variability across different studies. You mentioned this study found a 14-fold increase in lauric acid in the thigh, but other studies have reported increases of 79-fold, even 80-fold. What accounts for that huge difference?
That staggering discrepancy is almost certainly due to the difference in the insect's growth substrate.
The food the larvae eat.
The food the larvae eat. The BSL is a bioconverter. If you feed it a substrate that's rich in certain fats, the resultant BSL meal will reflect that in the fats it converts and stores.
So if the substrate in one study was pure vegetable oil waste, and in another it was a lean, starch-heavy byproduct, the final BSL fat profile would be radically different.
Exactly. Since the larvae are converting the unsaturated fats they consume into saturated fats, the input quality directly dictates the output quality. If you use a high PUFA substrate, the BSL will convert more of those beneficial fats into less beneficial saturated fats, which is how you get that 79-fold increase.
So if we want to perfect this system, controlling the fat profile means controlling the fly's diet.
That's the key.
It makes the focus of future research perfectly clear. It needs to pivot from, does it work, to how can we control it?
That is the consensus. Future research needs to systematically study the precise effect of the insect growth substrate on the final fatty acid composition.
With a focus on keeping that PUFA content up.
Right. Focusing on methods to maintain or even increase the critical PUFA content in the BSL meal itself. And additionally, we need to gain a deeper, more refined understanding of the lauric acid metabolic pathways within the broiler to formulate diets that truly maximize sustainability without gutting the meat quality.
So the BSL-50 finding is a powerful stepping stone.
But the final, fully optimized diet is still a frontier we are actively exploring.
So to synthesize this entire deep dive, Black Soldier Fly Larvae meal is not just a passing trend. It offers an invaluable, scalable, and sustainable domestic protein source.
And one that's critical for organic farming, alleviating those enormous environmental and economic burdens from imported soybean.
However, this replacement comes with a clear biochemical consequence. Total substitution compromises animal growth and significantly degrades the nutritional quality of the meat.
Defined by that systematic conversion of desirable unsaturated fats into less desirable stable saturated fats.
The functional conclusion, supported by comprehensive data, is that the 50% substitution level is the practical sweet spot.
It is. This partial replacement successfully halves the soy requirement. It mitigates the worst effects on performance, and it crucially retains essential nutritional markers like ALA stability in the high-value breast meat.
All while adding the benefits of lauric acid's antibacterial properties.
We've seen that the fly operates as an efficient biochemical converter, taking unsaturated fatty acids from its diet and changing them into saturated storage fats like lauric acid.
Which raises the fundamental provocative question we want to leave you with.
Considering this robust biological conversion mechanism, how much true, precise control can feed scientists ultimately gain over the final fat profile by just modifying the insect's diet?
Or is the resultant increase in saturated fatty acids an inherent, unavoidable biological outcome of using Black Soldier fly meal?
Meaning, we simply have to accept that specific nutritional trade-off to gain the overwhelming sustainability benefit.
That is something to mull over as the future of protein production continues to evolve right beneath our feet. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.
We'll see you next time.